show, and the name of the show is Newtown TV. Newtown is our name of our political party since there are no Democrats or Republicans in the village. So we are the Newtown Party, and we're on Newtown TV. We've had great success in our last couple of shows. So well, that's not actually true. The last show we had, Dell was on yesterday. We had a lot of technical difficulties. So we've decided to redo that show now. So it's really not a scheduled show, but it'll be airing now, and it'll also be on a recorded for later viewing. So Dell, if you could just introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
Sure. Yeah. Once again, thanks, Jerry, for having me on. My name's Dell Cullum. I live here in East Hampton, and I have a wildlife removal and a rescue business. So, of course, Hampton Wildlife Removal and Rescue is a business I have here locally for the past 10 years. And the end of last year, I just started a new nonprofit 501c3 organization, specifically to focus on wildlife rescue. And we do that with a large group of volunteers here locally, taking care of our wildlife from Montauk to Wayne Scott here in East Hampton Township. So that's what I do here, and I'm very proud to be part of the community doing such.
And you do a great job. I've known Dell quite a long time.
Thanks.
More recently, we got to be very friendly when I was chief of police with the village, and now as a candidate for mayor. And I understand his frustrations with the current village board and the prior village board, which actually is mostly the same people. So I guess let me start off with explaining the three different let me start off with explaining how the beaches are managed and the difference between the municipalities. So we have a town municipality, which is made up of a supervisor and 4 council people, and that's called the town board. And then we have the village board, which is made up of a mayor and 4 village trustees, and that's the village board. And basically those 2 legislative bodies manage the town, and the other manages the village. And they make laws, they have separate police departments, everything is separate. Then there's a group of 9 elected officials that are called the East Hampton Town Trustees, and they are elected, and their job is to manage the beachfronts or the beaches and other things. But in this particular segment, we're going to talk about the beaches, and we're only going to be talking about the beaches from 2 Mile Hollow to Georgica Pond right now, and that falls adjacent to the village jurisdiction. So let me explain how that all works. So the village property line, if you will, goes to the base of the dunes on the Atlantic Ocean. And then the trustees, the 9 trustees, manage the sand from the base of the dune to the ocean. That's the simplest explanation I can come up with. Now, in order for the village board to pass laws, because the 9 trustees do not have any regulatory power, so if the village wants to regulate fires on the beach, dogs, anything like that, they have to get permission from the East Hampton Town Trustees. If the East Hampton Town Trustees say, no, we're not in favor of that law, then that law cannot be enforced. That would be an invalid law. So having said all of that, now I'm going to turn back to Dell and let Dell explain the problems and the issues that have been going on for many, many years that Dell is trying to resolve. Go ahead, Dell.
Okay, well, when I returned back home here, I was born and raised in Amagansett and was away for quite a while, and returned back in 2010 to spend more time with my aging father and mother. So the time I was here, I had noticed a significant difference in many things, but one thing that stood out a lot was the amount of trash that I saw on our roadsides, and particularly our beaches, which is where I spent my mornings since I was striking up a photography regiment out here in the beautiful sunrises and our beaches. I noticed there was a problem, and as the years went by, the problem seemed to get worse and worse. At one point, I realized one summer that the village had put garbage cans. The garbage cans were always a problem when they were on the beachheads. They would overflow. People would come at night after the village was done emptying them. The folks would come and put their trash around the garbage cans when they were full and bring their household trash there. And it got to be kind of an eyesore, to say the least. Of course, this garbage overnight would get broken into by a lot of our local wildlife critters, and not to mention the diurnal critters, the seagulls, who rip this stuff to shreds and spread it all over our beaches in all directions, including the water, much like the elements, the weather did the same thing. So it was a problem, which really shocked me when one summer I realized that the village took these garbage cans that they were having trouble maintaining in the parking lots, and they physically moved them onto the beaches. Now, I don't mean just from the parking lot to the beach to the sand. I mean almost halfway to the water. And this was really a bizarre move, I thought, on the village part, particularly during this time where environmentalism is so in the top of everyone's conscience nowadays. And particularly the village, who is really concerned enough to where they began banning items like plastic bags and straws and this stuff. And I just found it funny that during this move of trying to be more environmentally conscious, that they would allow these garbage cans on the beach. So I questioned that behavior and that move, and I was very vocal about it to the village, which they really were insulted and took offense to me even bringing it up. And in fact, a lot of the folks thought that I was making them look bad for they were doing poor work, and really that wasn't it at all. In fact, the only thing that I kept saying was a failure was the plan. The workers were doing what they could do. It was the operational plan that wasn't working.
Right, and then in 2015, that's how far back this whole battle, if you will, has been going on. The trustees at the time, the 9 trustees at the time, took your side, or at least some of them did. And they actually called the village in to one of their meetings, which I have the minutes from, and confronted them and basically demanded that they get the garbage cans off the beach. And the village took the stand as no, which I find amazing that they could take that stand, but they did. And Rick Lawler, who's currently running for re-election, he was at that meeting, and he actually said, believe it or not, Dell, he actually said, and I have the quote, that the garbage cans are not the problem. And I know you disagree with that. And then Barbara Borsak, who's running against me for mayor, was at that meeting. She was the deputy mayor at the time. And she said that give them some time to discuss it, which is their current, I mean, that's pretty much the way they handle things. If they don't agree with you, they'll tell you, give us some time, let us digest it. We'll get back to you. And that's what she said at that meeting. She said, give us some time to discuss it and we'll get back to you. She did get back to us, Dell. She got back to us on March 20th of 2020, just a couple of weeks ago. And she said that they are going to take those cans off the beach this summer. So she also said they weren't there last summer, which isn't true. But
no, that's not true at all.
No, because you and I were there and we saw them. Right. So just to go back to 2015, when they brought in. I mean, I find it incredible that they would just tell the trustees no.
Well, not only that, Jerry. Look, I approached the trustees because I knew I was getting nowhere with the village, and I said, well, look, the trustees manage the beaches for the people. They are the property managers for us. So let's go to who can solve this problem. So I went there, and I spoke to the trustees, and they were very accommodating to my complaint. And in fact, 8 of the 9 members agreed with me and said they would make the move and go talk to the village. But you're right. The village responded as if they were blindsided with this request to have these cans removed, not even thinking that their actions of putting them on property that didn't belong to them to begin with, that was quite blindsiding. And it even goes a little bit farther, because I don't know if you want to get to this yet, but what happened eventually was they agreed to do a pilot program. Well, this is what happened. When I got nowhere with the trustees decided to go back on what they told me, and they didn't have the cans removed, and it was a mystery. I don't know what happened, but something happened, and they changed their mind. The cans were there, and I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to run for trustee to take care of this problem, because I have no other choice. And that's exactly what I did. And I won without a problem, because the folks knew what I was there for. And quite frankly, that was the only thing I was there for. I could care less about all the other functions of the trustees. I was there to get these garbage cans off the beach. And ultimately I did, because you're right. They are going to be removed this year. And as much as the trustees will deny that you're doing, it is, believe me.
It's so unfortunate that it takes 5 years of you embarrassing them, basically. Maybe Marcos, can you play some footage of the beaches that Dell? Not that one, Marcos. The footage of the garbage that was all over the beaches that Dell has been.
I documented this stuff for years, video and stills, and the village saw them, the community saw them, and I was relentless, because it was quite obvious these cans were causing massive destruction on our beaches when it came to filth and trash, debris. It's ridiculous.
Right. It's just incredible. So while we're waiting for Marcos to get up the clip of the garbage all over the place, which has been going on for 5 full years with no resolutions, we're going to jump. I'm going to jump back to the village in order to pass a law, like I was saying earlier, on a village, not a village beach, but on a public beach that fronts their property. They have to get trustee permission, and they've passed several laws, and even when the trustees said no, they still wrote a law in another section of law, but they're enforcing it on the beaches, which is mind-boggling to me. I mean, somebody should be held responsible. It's an invalid law. You're having your code enforcement or police department enforce a law that you know is invalid, created illegally, and no one seems
that can create quite a liability.
Yeah, exactly. And I've pointed it out to the local papers, and no one seems to care.
No.
When they'll care, Dell, is when somebody gets hurt or sues, and then it'll all come rolling back, and somebody will be in trouble. But unfortunately,
and they'll say, "Why didn't somebody do something?"
Right. But that's what happens. It just like you've been fighting this fight for 5 years. They just they dig their heels in. It seems when somebody points something out, even if they know they're wrong, they dig their heels in and they refuse to fix the problem. I mean, we had a recent, just going back to June of 2019, we had a similar, somebody who brought up recycling on the streets, pointed out to the village board that you don't have any recycling cans on Main Street, on Newtown Lane. And instead of going, oh, you're right, we should fix this, they still thinking about it, Dell. They're still
Yeah.
digesting it. They're
Well,
still
I'm sure they took offense to the actual idea, since
right.
it didn't come from them. I mean, that's the way I felt. I felt like they didn't want to work with me. Meanwhile, I'm doing their job. I'm
Right.
out there cleaning the beaches every day, mind you. I'm out
Right.
there. I'm organizing cleanups. I'm doing everything I can to keep the beaches clean.
Right.
And they're allowing garbage cans on the beaches. It was like a kick in the face, and not
Right.
just my face. I got a bunch of volunteers, and if they're going to waste their time too, I'm not going to stand for that. That's ridiculous. So I kept being more vocal about it until I just probably they got, all of them were fed up with me at that point. But hey, when you got a passion for something and you're trying to do something right, sometimes these things are worth it, and I felt it was in this case. I felt it was important to keep up the fight. I seem to have lost you, Jerry. Now this looks like it's become the Dell show. However, don't don't mistake this. I am not going to run for mayor. I'll leave that in Jerry's hands. I'm waiting for them to come back on board here. But meanwhile, while they're not, I just would like to continue to say that I think this is long overdue, getting these garbage cans off the beach. They had no reason to be there to begin with. I think the reasoning at the time when the question was asked, why are these garbage cans on the beaches? It was to make it easier for the folks that were using the beaches during the summer months. It was easier for them to dispose of their trash, which really I thought was promoting laziness, really, when you think about it. I mean, if you have to make it easier for folks, all they need to do is whatever they bring on the beach, the trash that they accumulate and create, they could keep in their space. They could gather it up when they're ready to leave. They can put it into a bag that they bring with them, okay, or whatever they want to do. And you take it off the beach when you walk back to your car. On the way back to your car, you simply drop your bag of garbage in a garbage can. And if the garbage can at the beachhead is full, hey, I got an idea. Take it home with you. Throw it in your garbage can. All right? That's much better than placing it on the ground next to a full garbage can and expecting somebody else to worry about your debris and your trash and your filth. All right? So I don't find that to be a very difficult thing to do. It certainly doesn't require the need to make it easier on these people by putting the actual filthy receptacles on the physical beach to make it easier for these people to get rid of their trash. Makes absolutely no sense with that theory of thinking. It's ridiculous. Not common sense on any level.
I agree with you, Dell. I agree with you, Hunter. I heard you the whole time. I was
yeah.
I was just
it's so anti-environmental that I honestly don't know where they had the nerve to even put up a fight with me to begin with. It was yeah.
I have a question for you. So in 2018, the village board decided to pass laws concerning the beach. One law was about public assemblies. And they made a law that said if you want to gather with 50 people on the beach, you have to file a permit with the village. And if it's over 50 people and you're a town resident, you have to pay $500. If you're a village resident, you have to pay $100. The trustees have never authorized this. They've asked the village for the documentation, and they can't provide it. It doesn't exist, they said. So they've gone on their own, and they're now charging to use property that they don't own.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it's incredible. It'd be like me charging your house. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even worse is the trustees sit back there, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, because they're
Right.
just sitting back with their hands folded, and they always
Yeah.
have been. They're not. They're not active about this. They're, in my opinion, as far as stewards of our beaches, I don't see it. I don't see
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And then, they should just, and then again, in 2018, they enacted a law. And this one, they actually followed the rules. They sent a letter to the trustees about no smoking on the beach. The trustees agree with that. So we have a clip of that village board meeting, and this is the response that the village board, how they react to how the law is written. This is what they said.
I'm surprised that the trustees are opposed to it because they're so concerned with the garbage, and I see more cigarette butts on the beaches and floating in the water. I mean, that's pretty gross.
And the filters from the cigarette butts.
Yeah, they
take
don't
years to buy.
Decompose, and I don't really understand that, but.
I would like to think this is a collective response by the board with respect to the town trustees. We recognize their negativity on this particular subject and the hearing we're having, but I think we're going to agree to disagree, period.
Well, my question is, if the trustees are against this, do we, I guess, are we free to adopt this, or?
Yes, because it's I'm sorry, it's not under Chapter 77 beaches. It's a separate code that doesn't require their approval.
Yeah, so what they do is the trustees said no, so they are going to put it into a village code so that they can have no smoking on public streets, no smoking in the public park. And they threw a little section in there that says village beaches. Well, the village doesn't have a beach.
They don't have a beach.
It's incredible to me. So
It's
they're out enforcing this rule. And I'm not defending smoking because I don't really have
No.
either way. That's not the point. The point is the procedure and the arrogance, and that you can
Yes.
you know what? We don't care that you manage those beaches. We don't care what the law says. We're going to do what we want to do. And that's
Right.
not what public officials should be doing.
No, not at all. They're doing something wrong on property that doesn't belong to them, and they just are telling the property owners, which is the public. In short, it's the public owns the beaches. The village is telling the public, we don't care what you think. We're going to do what we want with your property anyway. That's really what the mayor just said. I mean,
Right.
Look, in that way of thinking, then why can't some of these restaurants that want to have more outdoor seating, the village doesn't want them to do it? Well, maybe they can just agree to disagree and do it anyway. That's no different way of thinking than they just displayed right there in that video clip.
Exactly. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
We just saw a great example of that with Colleen Muller of Petite Blue, which borders the parking lot in the back. She put out a little stuffed animal on her front porch that with an open sign around its neck. The village issued summonses, took her to trial, and for what? For nonsense. And yet the village board can do whatever they want, and they have no responsibility.
I'd like to see them enforce that law on the beach. Again, I don't advocate smoking and/or vaping. If people want to do that, that's their own business. But the beaches belong to the public and not the village. And if the police go to arrest somebody for breaking this cockamamie law they made up, and somebody gets hurt in that skirmish, isn't somebody going to be liable for something here? Because it doesn't seem to me that you can enforce a law where you couldn't have written it to begin with.
Exactly.
And how does that happen, Jerry? Who's got to answer to that? Who's writing laws on property that doesn't belong to the law writer?
Well, these are all questions I asked back in July. I met with the East Hampton Star. It was actually in the Independent, but no one really is an investigative reporter out here, so it doesn't really get followed up on. And to be honest with you, I think this fault really falls on the village board. I mean, they've been on the board for 20 years, 17 years, and they don't know what they can create and what they can't. And then you have a village attorney sitting there who is advising them that this is all okay. It's just, it's craziness to me. They had to know what they were doing. And they just said, well, I think it was very clear what the mayor said. The mayor said, we agree to disagree and we're going to do whatever we want. Let's stick it in another section and keep enforcing it. And if you drive up to beaches, you'll see the sign. It says no smoking on public beaches, on village beaches, which I always get a kick
on
out.
village beaches. Yeah.
There are no village beaches.
No,
so
there are no village beaches. No
village parking lots, and they do own those, but they
just be advised. Just be advised out there, listening audience. Those beaches belong to you. Those beaches are yours. Okay, the trustees manage the beaches from the west border of Heather Hills to Georgia. Okay, and or be to the eastern border. But don't let them take your beaches away from you. Don't let anybody. These are yours. Okay, that's my opinion.
No, no. It's not just your opinion. It's the law.
Well, I hope it's everybody's opinion.
I'm saying it's the law. It's the law as it is. So, well, I just wanted to, we kind of covered everything in that.
Well, I'm glad, Jerry, that they decided I'll believe it when I see it, first of all, but if they're going to remove all the cans this year from the beaches, again, first, I'll believe it when I see it. Secondly, it's far overdue and it's about time. And I think the time that they were there was too long. I think they should have fixed this problem years ago.
I think it'll actually happen, Dell, because remember the conversation you had with one of the village board members last summer, where that person told you they had a supermajority. Really, it was 4 against 5, wanted them off the beach. Yet he had
nobody wanted to make the move because they didn't want to. They wanted to wait until the mayor was away. Nobody wanted to interfere.
Nobody wanted to anger the mayor.
Yeah. Nobody wanted to interfere with his rule.
It's sad,
great environmental decision. I'm glad he held so much power. Hopefully he can save a lot of the other things going on in the world.
It's a sad situation when you have elected officials that can't even do what they believe in, or can't even speak about what they believe in. I don't understand it at all. You and I were on TV, we're on Facebook, we're talking about what we believe in and what we're going to do. And we have elected officials that hide under rocks and unwilling to get anything done. I mean, if it takes 5 years, Dell, for them to get garbage cans off a beach, how are they going to revitalize the downtown, fix the park, put in a sewer system, which they've been putting off for many years? And we need that sewer system in order to revitalize the downtown village, to allow more restaurants. And they 5 years just to move a garbage can 50 feet. I don't think there's much hope for them to get that.
Let me tell you, there was a lot of resistance. And the resistance is more upsetting than the actual not solving the issue, getting the cans off the beach. It was the whole journey to get them off the beach to begin with. That's what's upsetting. That's what's upsetting. This was a no-brainer.
Exactly.
It shouldn't have taken this long to come to this conclusion.
And now we're starting another journey with recycling on Main and Newtown, because that should be a no-brainer as well.
Exactly.
Put out a few recycling bins. What is the problem?
Right. Well, I got to say they're a little bit difficult to manage because, again, you're dealing with people, and people need to be trained properly. I hate to speak as if they're animals, but I'm serious. Look, we're talking about people who still litter and throw garbage out their window and are taking off their gloves as we speak and throwing them on the ground as they walk along. Okay. but we need to train folks again to not litter, period. Just stop the littering. And it doesn't matter whether it's a straw, a plastic bag, a balloon, everything applies. No littering. And the problem with the recycling is somebody will take a piece of paper trash and they'll see the litter, just the litter can is full. Next to it is the recycling can, which isn't full. So do I have to tell you what happens?
No, I understand.
The trash goes into the recycling, which really contaminates that recycling load and makes that recycling load in some cases back into the waste stream.
Right,
and
but
that's the problem with recycling.
We have to try harder, though. We're not doing
it.
it.
We do. Well, we have to.
At the beaches, they keep blowing their horn that they have recycling bins at the head of each beach. So if they can put them there, and apparently it must be working to their satisfaction there, why can't you do the same thing on the streets? I don't follow their logic at all.
Well, again, I'd like to see more data on how it's been working out, because I know from what I've seen of the recycling cans on the streets, particularly in Montauk, for example, the recycling cans get used for waste cans, and that has to be corrected. Otherwise, you're not doing a recycling program. You're just adding more cans to the street with different names on them.
True, okay. But we have to do a better job, and I just saw.
Well, we do. We keep trying. We keep trying. Right.
I just saw somebody pop on with a statement that said we have to train people better. Yeah, education is a big part. Yeah, I agree.
It's huge. It's doing that, and enforcement is too. And enforcement doesn't mean we go out there. We push the police to go out there and ticket everyone who drops a piece of litter or something flies out of their truck. But no, it's not like that. But when somebody is warned and then is caught again driving down the highway with crap floating out of their truck, really all this takes is, look, folks, every morning before you get in your car or when you start it up and you're letting it warm up and you have a truck with a pickup, get out of your truck, walk around your bed, see if there's anything loose in it that might fly out when you're driving. It's going to take you 30 seconds. You're going to save a litter from being tossed out onto the road. It's that simple. So, yeah, there's training involved, but it's a lot of common sense, man. It's a lot of common sense. You got to want to be part of the solution to make it work.
That's great. So,
yes, I saw Diane, another comment. I think it was Diana, mentioning that fines will stop some of it. Absolutely. You hit some of these people, and word's going to spread. Hey, it didn't pay to litter and throw my stuff out the window. Yeah, you're right. Fines will help, but then again, it's not something that can be done too aggressively, because at the same time, we want to try to educate folks, and we don't want to educate them by being, out there aggressive. Yeah.
Dell, what we didn't talk about was the last summer the village started a pilot program to try to appease you.
I love that.
So
I love the pilot program.
Yeah, explain that.
Okay, so when I brought up the issue as a trustee about let's get the cans off the beach, they were like, well, let's try a pilot program. And the pilot program is we're going to take the cans off of one beach, and we're going to see how it works out for that beach. And that'll be a pilot program. And that just cracked me up, because, again, here we're talking about, we're doing something backwards. The pilot program should have been putting the cans on the beach. Okay. That would have been a pilot program. And then, of course, that pilot program failed miserably.
5 years ago.
You end that pilot program. But in this case, they kind of did it backwards. They called taking them off the beach a pilot program. So they did it. And of course, if you can find data on it, you'd be finding the lost ark.
Yeah, I
Because,
asked the village. I asked the village for the data on the
yeah,
pilot
yeah,
program, and they told me they were going to discuss it in October at the October board meeting. October.
yeah.
It
Yeah,
never happened.
Jimmy Grimes from the East Hampton Town Trustee also said that he was collecting data from the pilot program, and of course, none of that ever saw the day of light because it never happened. I, on the other hand, continued to take my data that I had been accumulating for the past 7 years prior, and I was keeping track of what was going on with the pilot program, and it wasn't going good. In fact, what did work out was where they finally, I think it was August 1st. They waited for the whole summer before they decided to really enact this pilot program. And what they did is, I think it was August 1st, they took the cans off of Wyborg Beach. And this is a story I like to tell because that night when I went there and somebody called me and said they took the cans off the beach. Actually, they had previously taken them off of Georgica Beach. That was the original pilot program. They did that at the beginning of the summer. Georgica Beach was the one beach that had the least amount of issues with the garbage cans. Okay. And because there's very little beach there, except for the surfing area, and the surfers take awesome care of our beaches, no matter where they are. I will say that. So they do the pilot program at Georgica, which was really didn't need to happen there. They should have picked one of the beaches that was causing a lot of the problems, like Egypt Beach, 2 Mile Hollow, or Wyborg. What they ended up doing in August was removing the cans at Wyborg Beach. And I remember going there at night, the first night without cans, and I saw a huge catered party off to the west was setting up, and I saw maybe a half a dozen or more fires on the beach that was beginning, people crowding around and coming to party on the beach all night. I was like, oh my gosh, I what have I done? I'm going to come here tomorrow and I'm going to look like the biggest fool. All these years I've been talking about this, getting rid of those garbage cans. And I got to tell you something. That next morning, I came to the beach with all my camera equipment and my crew, and we got out there and we looked around. There wasn't a spot of trash on the beach, Jerry. We couldn't find a straw. We couldn't find a paper cup. We couldn't find a thing in the sand. In fact, nobody even left their burning coals in the sand, which is another thing that they often do. They haven't quite got that rule down 100%. But that beach was spotless. Now, the parking lot where the cans were brought to was a mess. They were overflowed. The garbage was all on the ground, but it was in the parking lot. It was contained, and the wind was being blocked by the edges of the dune edges of the parking lot. So if this had been out on the beach, it would have blown in the water. It would have blown east and west. However, spotless. And every day after that, until Labor Day, I checked those beaches, Jerry. That was the cleanest beach in East Hampton. People didn't have a garbage can on the beach, so there was no need to put trash on the beach.
Right. Well, they put on extra garbage collection until midnight, because what happens, people come to the beach after the beaches close. When I say close, at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whenever the lifeguards go home, the beaches are technically closed, but people use the beaches up until 10 o'clock at night, until sunset. And families go down there, they have dinner, they pack up their garbage and they put it in the garbage can. And I've been guilty of it too. If the garbage can is full, I will put my garbage right next to the garbage can to make it convenient for the person who's picking up the garbage. That's in my head. You're trying to do the right thing. You think you're doing the right thing, but no one comes to clean up the garbage. Then the bags get ripped open. Then the seagulls spread it into the water.
Right.
We're really not helping anything by having the cans on the beach. They should be in the parking lot. Like you said, there's less wind and you have less spreading of the garbage. So,
Well, at least the spreading isn't on the beach. And
correct.
as far as the trash on the sides of the can, understandably, I actually always looked at that as, if these cans aren't emptied properly, and to the point where people have to put the garbage on top or around the bottom of it, then it's actually forcing the people to litter. You're forcing people to litter because you're
Right.
forcing people to put their garbage on the ground. That's littering. Okay.
Right.
Regardless
Right.
is if it's in a bag, nice and neatly tied up or not. Okay.
Right.
That is going to be vulnerable to the birds and to the wildlife. That's going to open those bags, and then it's going to be vulnerable to the elements. It happens every time. So I always looked at that as forcing the people to do the wrong thing. And how are we going to train people to do the right thing when you're forcing them to do the wrong thing? So I always said, if the garbage cans are full, don't leave it on the ground. Take it home. Leave it
Right.
on your ground at your home. Don't leave it on my beach.
I
Okay.
totally agree with you. Totally agree. So I think
I get worked up when I start talking about this stuff.
Well,
it still bothers me.
it's been a long time. It's been a frustrating fight for you, and
It has been.
I think you're finally, if they do what they say they're going to do, which is always questionable with these people, but if they do what they say they're going to do, we shouldn't see any garbage cans on the beach starting Memorial Day weekend. I can assure you, though, Dell, if they are there in July when I take office, should I win, they will be gone. I can guarantee that. So I want to thank you for coming on. I also want to take just a second to thank the first responders out there. I know everybody's going through a tough, scary time right now, especially our police and ambulance and fire departments who are responding to all kinds of different calls. So, and we have a lot more population here because a lot of our second homeowners have come out here to get away from the city. I can't blame them. If this is a beautiful place, that's why they bought here. So, I just wish everybody safety. And again, Dell, I can't thank you enough for coming on and everything.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate it. And I support you a lot, 100%. And I would also like to thank the emergency service workers and the health professionals who are all out there doing an outstanding job in such a difficult time right now. But keep up the good work, everybody. Stay safe, stay home. Let's get through this so we can all get back to normal and function properly like we should be.